Joyful Danish. Stay human. Is it even still possible to stay human? Maybe. It's not too late.
Hello, and we are live. Welcome. I'm Daniel, Joyful Danish here, your therapist, coach, and actually also an author. I hope you are great today. Did you get any presents? Or could you be present where you were during the holidays? Now is the new year, right? Also, during these holidays, with your screens everywhere, in your pocket, on your arm, in the living room, the kids' iPads, and all the other screens that scream for your attention, right? The best memory I have is when I was able to be fully present. Because in that way, my body was actually able to record the sensory input we get constantly. But if there's nobody home, you can't recall the memory because you weren't there to receive the call when you got the mail. Get it? And nothing needs to be changed or adjusted. I was just fully in acceptance of that moment and took that moment as it was. And in that way, yeah, some of my favorite memories, I can see that the pattern is, the more I was fully there, the easier it was for my body to record and store that memory. And even some of the memories are maybe 10, 15, now even 20 years old. It's so vivid still. But there's also memories where I can see, oh, that's a little bit of a blur, or only some of the details are there. And I can kind of tell that, okay, because I wasn't really there, or I was a little bit easily distracted, or yeah, again, comes back to I wasn't fully present. But I do hope that you got some presents that you liked, and more importantly, that you were present with the people that you think that matters the most to you. Because, I mean, that's the topic for today. Is anybody home? How to come home and be more present. And this is actually very much in a literal sense, even though maybe you have seen the, what can you say? Have you ever watched a movie where the house itself is almost like a character? Maybe the creepy house in Home Alone filled with traps, or the comforting house in Up floating with balloons, or even Tony Stark's high-tech mansion in Iron Man. Now here's the twist. Your body is a house too, not just metaphorically, but in a way that deeply affects your health, your energy, and your mood, and thereby your relationships. But firstly, towards yourself and with yourself. So, I actually, in 2022, when I made the first Danish book that I created, called The House Body, How to Get the Body Home, it was a project that I started almost from the beginning of my education, since I have a degree in Psychomotor Therapy, meaning you work with the body and the mind dynamic, how they can affect each other and so on. But it's very technical language and whatnot, so I remember from my very first physiology session class with Eva Ebjerg Simonsen. She was my physiology teacher in my university I went to. And she started, I remember saying, we start with the cell because it creates a humility, a sense of humility, a humbleness, and an understanding of what it is we're working with when we have our hands on the body, when we do manual treatment with our clients. And she was right. However, I quickly became aware that there were quite a few complicated words, if not many actually, during our review of the whole body that we received during the entire education, like 3.5 years, right? So it's a state-approved education. But I thought, when I'm going to get to the other side, right? I'm finished. I'm done with this education. I have a degree now. Awesome. There will probably be a need for a translation, a more down-to-earth language of how one could see and understand and interact with one's body. And this ended up resulting in this book, which I subsequently did workshops and courses and lectures around after I actually finished. And I actually did it a little bit during the course as well, during my education. Because I could see that when we talked about the cell, okay, this function in the cell, okay, but this function in the body and this function in the mind, all these three things, it's actually the same function. But it's having three different, complicated, not easy to say words for the same function. Could there be an idea then, I thought, to simply come up with a much more down-to-earth language of like, this is the function. We can say this from a word that we use in our everyday life and simply use that across the board. On the physical, psychological, on the cellular level, and even on the social level. So that took eventually most of my time while I was studying this. And about a year later, because funny enough, I actually don't like to write. But what I do like to is actually structuring information in a meaningful sense. And I really could see that this could actually be really helpful and useful for many people, which I did get feedback along the road with my clients when I started to use these pictures and symbols of like, yeah, because now I'm getting to it. What is it then, Daniel? It came down to like something that I now call in the English version, because in the Danish version it was like house body, huskrop, house and body. But in English now I have actually translated it to Houseawake. So it's about the language of everyone, even a homeless guy or homeless person, understand the concept of home and the functions, the basic functions that are in the home. And then I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to build around, this idea of creating the body functions down into a relatable language in a form of construction of whatever is your home. And then by studying the cell, I could come down to like 7 functions that has a red pattern across the cell, the body, the brain, and even social functions we see, and even interactions we do. So what I would like to do in this episode is actually to talk you a little bit into like a quick speed introduction to what took me 4 years to create. And the Danish book, I did try to condense it a lot still to make it simple. 50 pages, that's not a lot, but I did do it. I would say though that in the English version that ended up being slightly a little bit longer actually, because I then added a lot of examples, so people can play around, with how they can start to integrate into their home. How does that even work? How is the plumbing in your bathroom? How do you take care of your living room? Which is also a funny word, isn't it? Is that the only room where you live? I know it's just wordplay here, but I really got curious about it. And when I started to integrate the whole language of the body, it's starting to become very practical as well. So, let's see. If we begin, like, your body is a house too. Not just metaphorically, but in a way that deeply affect your health and your energy, your mood, and your relationship. And tonight we're going to walk through the 7 functions we're bringing to life, and some movie magic, some fun little exercise you can do where you sit, and a bunch of practical suggestions you can take home. Pun intended. Yes, a lot of them. So think of this as a guided house tour, except the house is you. So grab your popcorn and let's get started, alright? So the first function that I came across is the manual, your control panel. And think of the manual as your house control center, like in the Matrix when Neo finally sees the code behind reality. The manual is your awareness of how to steer your own system. We take the 7 function briefly now, and then we go in deep into each one, okay? So the manual is what finds the manual. And that can be like, for example, your brain, or even in your sensory buffet, you have actually 7. And in this case, in this category, it will be your proprioceptive sense. That is the sense that registers where is this part of the body located. So it can also be, of course, in out here in the real world, your address, something you need to find that creates the manual for a certain activity. It can also be the courthouse in the real world. But that's like the main premise of the manual. And the manual, for example, can be that you, on a physical plane, 3 minutes body scan, checking in. Like you turn on the light switch in your house and you become aware of like what's going on in here. All right. That's the manual of what's going on, of what is possible to do. All right. And if we have to go with another example, it can also be like that you, what can you say, journal one decision each day and reflect on, was it me driving or was I simply on autopilot? And both is of course necessary. But it's just to simply give you some ideas, because again, we can't go through all of them, but I'll give you some examples here and there, some invitations, and it's then up to you to either pause it and try it out, or do it later when you have better time. But this is overall simply to get you to get motivated and more curious about your home, your body. What should be your first home? Your body. Not the outer home, but the inner home. And it sounds very hippie, I know, but that's why I actually done a lot of work to try to make this much more practical and much more okay. I mean, it's a new language without being a new language, because you're using relatable words, but in a different context that we maybe are not used to. All right? So I hope this makes sense, and I'll try to not running all around, because again, it's still a lot of information, and sometimes I feel like it can be hard to to condense it, because the format is also that I'm not trying to want to go too long today. So yeah, so let's go on to the next one, and maybe you'd like to get the 7 first, and then I'll go to the next one. Okay, so we have the manual, then there's the phone, which is what connects and receive and disconnects calls. And then there's the door, which is open or closes. And then there's the energy exchange, makes, use, gives, and receive energy. And then there's the shopping cart, picks up and sends what needs to be moved. And then there's the processing, the second last one, transforms material and passes it on. And the last one is the cleanup, sorts out what should and should not be used anymore. So the next one, we did the manual. The next one is the phone. So the phone can be many things. The phone can be your nervous system, for example. It literally sends more small impulses for you to start something, Again, if the door is open, if there is energy to it, and if there is something that can actually move it, and thereby processing it, and thereby do the action that you actually want to do. So all these 7 functions are intertwined into each other. So each function needs the other ones. They have all these 7 functions within them. And the phone can also be sense-wise your sense of hearing. Or like your mailbox, right? You get mail. Or it can be customer support. Or, if we're going to a more practical sense, every house needs a phone line or a Wi-Fi. This is your communication system. How you connect with others and how you talk to yourself. Think of Inside Out, the movie, where the emotion arguing at the console. That's your phone ringing inside your head. So turn to the person next to you, or imagine someone you love, if you're alone, and say out loud, "I'm glad you're here." Feel how it changed your body. That's the phone working. Physically, you can, for example, do, "I want to relax my jaw," for 30 seconds. So tension here is like static on the line, that you have tension, you have muscle that have too much electric impulses that keep this active. But if you then say like, "Oh, we need to make the call to make this more relaxed, to stop creating these impulses and slowly relaxing." All right? So you can actually work with your phone line, different places around your body. And it's okay if there's certain areas where you feel like nobody takes the phone. I don't know what's going on. I keep ringing and ringing. Doesn't feel like there's nobody home. And that can actually be perfectly normal. That's okay. And the good news is that can be changed. You can actually improve this. You can change this for the better by simply training this. This is actually what we do a lot in our profession. As a psychomotor therapist, we work a lot with body awareness. And that is simply to strengthen the phone line across the body by using your nervous system. And another invitation could be, when your inner critic calls, answer with humor, or imagine it in a Darth Vader voice. Or simply just observe it. That, okay, this is what's going on. And if it's too much, you can simply change your focus by doing completely something else, like a different action. For example, walking in nature, or focusing on your breathing. If you put your hands on your chest and take a deep breath, am I breathing? And then checking, are you breathing? And then you maybe think, "Oh, of course I'm breathing, otherwise I'll die, blah, blah, blah." Then you're still up in your head. If you go down and check, okay, so what's your point? Yes, of course I'm breathing. Yes, but for that moment where you actually went down to check, that was your physical phone checking in your home. Where when you're just up here, that's your mental phone, your psychological phone. And we need to be able to outsource the different tasks, so we're not doing everything from here, from the minds, but also using our social phone, our physical phone, and our psychological phone, of course. So, physically, it can also be when you feel like the sense, I'm thirsty, I need to drink some water. And hydration is very important. It can also be like, I need to clear my mind and throat, So, that's actually important. All right, moving on to the next one, because otherwise this will take ages. The third function is the doors, or just the door. What opens or closes? Well, okay, so what could that be? That could be, for example, your skin. Your entire skin and all your muscles is also wrapped into different rooms, you might say. But there is actually overall this function of like cells. Like, for example, if you put water on your skin, you don't absorb it like a sponge, But there's certain things that you can absorb, and then there's other things that the body is intelligently enough to say that doesn't go in. We don't need that. So there is a constant function of a door, or a mental doorman, you can say that as well. Mentally, you're filtering things constantly. You're doing it right now, listening to this. And sense-wise, the door is your sense of touch. Can you touch it? Does it open? Does it close? Does it penetrate? Does it not penetrate? Stuff like that. And in the real world, a key locker. It opens and it closes. Or locks. And in the real world, it can also be, in a bigger version, storage units, storage warehouses and whatnot. And door lets people in and keep danger out. Without them, it's a chaotic environment. With them, locked too tight, it's isolation. Think of Home Alone. Kevin McAllister sets boundaries with paint cans and toy cars. Funny for him, painful for the burglars. Or think of Wakanda in Black Panther. Hidden when it needs to be, open when safe. So, mini exercise for you. Imagine your own front door. Close your eyes for 5 seconds. Who has the key? The manual. You know? The manual that needs to get in contact through the phone, the door's phone, to open the door or close the door. Who do you want to keep outside? So this function is actually very necessary. Because imagine, would you open up psychologically if your door, your front door, doesn't close? It's constantly just a little bit open. Not really, right? It will feel kind of uncomfortable, right? So we need this actually. And physically, we can actually do it by practicing standing tall with your feet grounded, like Gandalf at the bridge. You shall not pass. And simply clapping through your body. And even though that seems weird, it actually helps your body's cells, your skin cells, to activate, and thereby you sense your frame, your body frame, and thereby it feels more clear where do you stop and where does the world start. And that can be a great break if you are very much in your heads and maybe thinking about what does other people think, and you're not home. You're everywhere and nowhere. Psychologically, write down 3 situations where you wish you had said no. Next time, say it kindly but firmly. And the body can actually be a help there too. Because sometimes you maybe experience that you said yes to something and immediately after felt, that was actually a no. That was supposed to be a no. And then it should be okay to say like, I can't. It doesn't feel right, you know. I overstepped my own boundaries. Sorry about that. But I need to take care of myself as well. So I need to pass on this one. Yeah. And behaviorally, it can be when someone crosses your line, pause before responding. Like Neo dodging the bullets. The pause is the power. And the 4th function out of the 7 is the energy exchange. What makes, uses, gives, and receives energy. So every house needs electricity, right? You plug things in, you get energy out. Too many appliances, boom, blackout. Think of Iron Man. Tony Stark's run on his arc reactor. When it's strong, he flies. When it's weak, he crashes. So that's your energy exchange. So if you rub your hand together fast for 10 seconds, do you feel the heat? That energy creates an exchange. So that's, for example, in your body, it's your lungs. Your lungs both makes, but it uses energy as well to make energy and thereby give you energy, oxygen, and thereby it needs to receive energy in order to do that exchange of energy. And sense-wise, it's of course your sense of smell or sense of breath, but like in this case, it will be through the nose. Some people breathe through the mouth, others through the nose. But the natural way is actually, with this function, connected to the nose. And in the real world, it's for example the electric socket, or the energy company, the windmills, the oil company, everything that creates energy. So yeah, some of the examples to this can be, for example, physically scheduled breaks like charging your phone. Nobody runs on 1%. That will be very stressful and you will eventually burn out. And psychologically, notice the energy vampires in your life. People who drain you like the mentors in Harry Potter. Limit exposure. Behaviorally, give energy too. A smile the whole way is like solar panels. And physically, eat one energizing snack midday, like a fruit or something that like can quick recharge you. And psychologically, it can simply be to put the hand on your chest and breathe and maybe close your eyes for a short time, for simply giving your eyes a break, but also your mind a break. That you're checking in. Okay, how are we doing? Okay. Doesn't have to be that long. Less is more. That was one of the sayings that I really took home with me during my education. One of many things. Function number 5. The shopping cart. Yeah. Resources and nourishment. A house isn't a home without supplies, right? The shopping cart is how you gather food, tools, and experiences. Think of Hunger Games. Katniss has to choose carefully what she carries from the cornucopia. You too can fill your cart with everything. Because again, in this world where we get everything instant and there's so much of it, do we process it? Which is the next function, remember? But in this case, we can shop, gather. But if we're not doing anything with it, what you don't use, you lose. Or it end up getting old or not nourishing anymore because it's no longer relevant or it's too old, or there can be many things. And with your shopping cart, which is the one that picks up and sends what needs to be moved. That's, for example, your heart and your vascular functions. But it's basically still down to your heart doing that massive work of shopping. There's a lot of things that gets moved around through your bloodstreams, but that is by the main pump, the heart. And when it comes to your senses, that's the one that actually works closely related to the first one, the vestibular sense. And that's the sense that moves you around. And connected to the first sense, the proprioceptive sense, that sense, where is this body part in the room? It's here. And then connected to the vestibular sense, those two together, it's here and I want to move it here. And thereby allows that action to happen. And of course, in the real world, your shopping cart is your fridge, right? Or the shopping center where you buy your groceries and stuff in the supermarket. And what could be some suggestions to this one? If you imagine your weekly shopping cart, if only held things that nourish your body and mind, what stays and what goes. So that's where you're already starting to play with the last function, that is the cleanup, right? Sort out what should or should not be used anymore, or maybe should be. Physically, it can be add one colorful vegetable to each meal, like upgrading your pantry from grayscale to Wizard of Oz color. Yeah, how does that even being practical? But it can be, for example, adding an apple or a banana to your breakfast or to your lunch, and overall maybe thinking less processed food compared to processed. Because it's better, because that comes to the next function, the processing. If you are shopping stuff that's already processed, where you don't need to do any work, you don't need to process it, you're not going to get as much value from it. And again, what you don't use, you lose. So we need to keep this function active. And again, it has all the other functions built in. So that's important to think about. So, yeah. Psychologically, social media. Don't shop hungry for the dopamine, or in real life, you want to shop in the supermarket and you're hungry, you're going to buy stuff that is very fast, going to give you something, but maybe not that healthy something. And that's the thing with social media as well. But psychologically, it can also be stuff that you're shopping thoughts and weird ideas from, TikTok, YouTube, whatnot, but stuff that maybe not is that nutritious for your mental health. So you have to be aware of that. Check your mood before big decisions. When it comes to behavioral stuff, limit impulse buying. Ask, would Batman need this gadget? If not, maybe you don't need her. And maybe carry a reusable bottle. Symbol of being prepared. Or make a gratitude list once a week. It's like checking your fridge before buying more. Or you maybe can buy something more in bulk or online. Supermarket is also an option. So in that way you don't shop when you're hungry because you don't going to get the food right now anyway. So why will you buy some snack or whatever because you want it now, right? So then it's maybe better to peel some carrots, put it in the fridge, put some water or whatnot, but then you actually have some fresh snack that you can take throughout the day. And in that way, you kill the instant hungry snack impulse. All right. And then the sixth function, processing. Your kitchen and your digestive system. Your house, let me just say the function, the description. It was what transforms material and passes it on. So your body has a kitchen, and that's why the raw ingredients get processed into meals. That's why it's important that the more you eat that is not processed, like vegetables and bread and whatnot, that is more dark bread, for example, because it takes more time and more energy to process, but it gives more energy as well in the long run. So it's a longer gas mileage, Think of Ratatouille. Remy turns random ingredients into magic. Processing is about turning chaos into nourishment. So take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly like you're letting soup cool down. That's processing stress into calm. And physically, when you're eating, chew more slowly than you normally would, like watching the director's cut instead of skipping the scenes. Psychologically, journaling stressful events within 24 hours is like a way of processing something that you maybe didn't address in that situation, but then did later. So like a form of aftercare. And behaviorally, after arguments, do a recap with the other person. So what I heard was, or like, stuff like that, that's digestion and not ingestion. And in that way, it's not going to be later potentially imploding. You're going to actually process it before it's starting to build up inside you to something else and get rotten and whatnot and more explosive. And it can also be, for example, to take a short walk after meals, like stirring the pot, and that helps the digestion. And psychologically, it can be used the inside-out strategy, name the feeling, so it can move through. And more importantly as well, into that same topic, accept it and be with it. It sounds corny, but it actually works. Just be with it, not changing it. Just be with it. And that took actually a long time for myself to start to practice fully. Especially us men who want so much to take action, and it needs to be tangible and we need to be able to do something. That's why often men, if they have to talk about something, and especially with other men, they like to do something while they're talking. Fishing, chopping up wood, or doing something practical. Where women much easier can just sit down, have deep eye contact, and talk about deep stuff. And yeah, both forms works. You just have to, again, process what's going on. That's the main thing. That's also why we see gaming, especially in Web3, there's a lot of gamers. And in tech in general, a lot of people use gaming as a way to process and unplug. And slowly digest. Okay, so that happened, blah, 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 All right, the last one, number 7. Cleanup, which is the function that sorts what should and should not be used anymore. So, every house needs cleaning. Dust piles up. Pipes clog. Same with you. Cleanup is sleep, relaxation, emotional rest. Think of the Avengers after a battle. That don't just keep fighting, right? They eat shawarma. That's cleanup. Or the Lord of the Ring. Frodo has to sail to the undying lands. The journey ends and the healing begins. So that's the same with our body, because our body has an active nervous system and a passive one. So like, what can we say, a parasympathetic system and a sympathetic nervous system. And these two works together. One is when you in like a fight and flight response, and the other is when you actually are in relax and digest response. So it's almost like night and day. Where when you sleep, you are actually relaxing and you're recharging and you're energizing your body again for a new day tomorrow, where you then can use energy, right? And some of the suggestions here could be go to bed 30 minutes earlier. And Gandalf would say a wizard is never late, but your bedtime is. Maybe not, but sounds good. Or just be in bed earlier. You don't have to sleep, but just go to bed earlier to let your body know we're winding down now. Or read a book, something, but not horror. Read something that actually calms you down as well. I actually saw a YouTube channel that was kind of funny. He reads manuals. He reads out manuals and have made a YouTube channel, and people watching it, or putting it on at least, to fall asleep. Because it's so boring. That's brilliant. Great idea. I can't remember the name, but I heard it in a podcast somewhere But just to give you some ideas, put something on that actually helps you to wind down. For example, I use sometimes if I have too much mentally going on and I want to sleep, then I actually put on certain meditation, and it works every time. So it's sort of like a meditation, but I actually use it to simply just wind down and not listening to the meditation. It's just there, and you hear the nature music and the man guiding you, and there's some binaural beats as well in the background. And then before you know it, you're gone. You're sleeping. And what else? Forgive yourself daily. Like hitting clear cage, in your brain. Like just say that was today, we try again tomorrow. A new change, new day. It's okay. And behaviorally, once a week, do a digital detox evening. No screens, just you, like Bilbo in the shower. And physically, it can be breathe out longer than you breathe in. And the last one, watch a comedy before bed. Laughter is like a Febreze for the soul. So, here you have it. Your body is a house with 7 vital functions. The manual, your control panel, your phone, your communication, your door, your boundaries, energy exchange, your power grid, your shopping cart, your resources, processing, your kitchen, cleanup, your repair system. That's actually also sort of what your dreams are. It's usually stuff that you haven't processed or addressed throughout the day that then get processed in your dreams. Yeah, maybe that could be a future episode. Who knows? So, the next time that you feel off balance, ask yourself, which part of my house needs attention? Is it the door that is too wide open? Is it the power grid overloaded? Or do I just need to sweep the floor and get some rest? Remember, you're not just living in this house, you are this house. And like any good home, it deserves care, humor, and the occasional movie nights. So, as Morpheus will say in The Matrix, you have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind. So, stay house awake and take care of your house, and it will take care of you. And, of course, importantly, stay human. And the last thing I will say, actually, if you think this was interesting with the House Awake concept, I'm glad to say that throughout this year, I will actually finally publishing the English book they have translated, but also I have developed, because it is a little bit theoretically all this as well, even though I tried to spice this up a little bit, I even then made it into stories. It's sort of like self-therapy novels, but based around these 7 functions. And then it's like briefly about how, for example, the house can actually talk and can communicate to the guest that visits the house in a form of the previous owner's profession. For example, philosopher or poet or a singer-songwriter or a riddler, something like that. And then in that way, it's like a guided house tour based on that theme that the book is about. So the first one that I actually made is called The Orphan and the Abandoned House. And it's a little bit about me. There's a little bit of me in it, camouflaged into this story. And then there's like some questions and whatnot after each chapter. So like this, there's 7 parts. And hopefully people are going to get some healing out of that, or at least maybe some different kind of entertainment and some food for thoughts. So I will link that below here when I finally publishing it, because again, new year, new you, that's the saying, right? And I was thinking like, yeah, I need to get it out there because it actually has been done for some time now. So these two will coming out this year. Throughout this year, I have only this year to do it. So yeah, thank you for your time, valuable time, and I hope that you found this valuable. Write down, comment below, or reach out to me. You can write to JoyfulDanish@gmail.com with future questions, or if you want a session, because I actually do give sessions based on this concept as well. And yeah, the links are below, Calendly or whatnot. So I do online sessions as well. So yeah, a lot of options. Anyway, thank you for being you. Stay human and take care of your home.
Joyful Danish. Stay human. Is it even still possible to stay human? Maybe it's not too late.